So we saw it, guys. Let's begin. Let's get the comments rolling and we should start. It's already 8 or 9. I know it's Sunday, but we cannot be lazy. We cannot be lazy. So if you can hear me, say it. Hey, good morning, says Mr. Raju Kumar. Good morning, Mr. Kumar, on behalf of everybody. Uh, if you can hear me, we should begin. If the thing is all right, we should start, right? Should we? Can you hear me? Yes, let's go. Beautiful. Let us begin. Let us begin. Bum 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 bum. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We are having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We are working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. Well, not other people's husbands and wives. And just when we thought things could get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Call it divine intervention, folks, but things just got a whole lot better. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines, things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go! Oh, but before we go, gotta follow a tradition, right? You know the tradition? You know the sweet and sacred tradition with the simultaneous sip. We'll all sip something together and it'll bring us good luck, as it always does, without fail, every day. And all you need for the simultaneous sip is a copper mug, a glass, a tank, a chalice, a stein, a canteen jug, a flask, or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. I like hot water with some black pepper in it. And here we go. My God, beautiful. Let's do it again. So nice. It's healing. It's healing. You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what it says? It says that you're not alone. It says that we're in this together. That's such a beautiful thing to say. With that out of the way, let's begin. Let us begin. So, once again, a huge prediction of ours, which nobody said. Nobody said that. You remember it. I'm sure viewers of Thinker's Frequency would remember it. Nobody said that Trump was getting back on the table. Do you remember that? With the first time when he said India offered to zero its tariffs, but it's getting late. So everybody read that it's another one of those, hardball plays that Trump is doing. There's another one of those bullying tactics that he's doing. And I said that, hey, this is the guy coming back on the table, right? This is his way of coming back on the table. Now, people who have not been observing that person, people who've not read him properly, the books that he's been involved in, the kind of person he is, they don't understand that this is basically him getting back on the table. And you know what happened yesterday? Yesterday was the day it actually happened. So in one of the press conferences, he said, I get along with Narendra Modi, Mr. Modi, very well, and we are friends, and it's gonna be all right. It's gonna be all right. It's just we get off on some occasions, but overall it's great. Don't worry about it. And to which Mr. Modi actually retweeted that we are obviously always looking at US as an important ally, and these things just keep happening, and there's no problem. And then he said, though I'm pretty disappointed by the way that they've been buying Russian oil, but otherwise our relationship is great. He's a great PM and everything. So that is Trump getting back on the table. Who told you? Who told you? like we told you. You heard it here first. I even said that, just remember when this happens, who told you first, right? Because this is how the person operates. The good thing about Trump is that he's a business guy, right? He's a business guy and in construction. So that is like the most difficult of all businesses, right? Builders, developers, these people are very, very, wow, what a prediction, right? Says Mr. Tiwari. Amen. So, you told us, says Mr. Rajakumar. So, yeah, I told you. So, what happens is these guys who've been dealing with such plays, and if you read Art of the Deal, everybody should read Art of the Deal, by the way. It's a funny book, and it's something nice, right? So you'd like it. Now, the way that these people operate, the good thing about Trump is that he doesn't mind going back on his words, right? When he figures out that something is not working out, when he figures out that something is going wrong, he'll just quickly course correct without admitting anything. So he is, after all, a pretty big megalomaniac, right? He is a pretty big narcissist, so to speak, and we are all so are we all. So I'm not saying that there is a particular defect in his personality. I'm just saying that a guy at that position with that level of success, with that kind of kind of a temperament, he won't come down on his knees admitting that he did something wrong. He'll just politely say that, hey, nothing, it's no problem, let's get back, and that's it. And we saw it coming. I had seen it. I saw it coming, and this is what's happening. In fact, US has also, updated its position on some of the material it imports from India. It's just a very, very insignificant amount, $20 million, million, not billion, 20 million. So that basically is nothing, but it's a sign. So I told you, and this is exactly what happens. You got to read people right, and you've got to read people right in context. You got to read a story in continuation, right? So a story is not to be judged or read in a silo. It's supposed to be read with history as the guiding principle, right? So if you read, let's say, what did he want to do as far as the war is considered? He was the most anti-war president US could have had, right? So I'll give you a brief about the US history as far as the whole war apparatus is considered. So US is a pretty there's something called a military industrial complex as far as the US is considered, and that has been going on for a very, very long time. Okay, now these people, the military industrial complex is Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and all of these people, Boeing, everybody, they make stuff, and a lot of senators and a lot of US lawmakers have essentially lobbied with these people, and they want to start wars in order to sell weapons, because US has like a defense budget of what, trillions of dollars, $3 trillion, almost as much as Indian's GDP, or half of it. I'm guessing it's about $2 trillion. As compared to India, when you look at Indian defense budget, it's something like in $80 billion, $78 billion. China is at $230 billion. US is at $2 trillion. I'm assuming. I'm guessing if I'm not wrong. So one second. US defense budget. $1 trillion. Sorry, $1 trillion, not $2 trillion. $1 trillion. So what happens with this particular play is that they have a major influence on US policy. Okay, and that's why US keeps starting wars and so on and so forth. US has been a very interventionist country, like the police of the world and so on and so forth. You saw Iraq, you saw Afghanistan, you saw Libya, you saw Iran, even before it was a thing. You saw so even the Russian-Ukraine war is a proxy war done by US. Okay, so Ukraine is basically, they got $150 billion from from Democrat administration 2020 to fight the Russians, right? So it's a proxy war which has been going on. Now, the American right wing, the political spectrum of the American right wing, they are very anti-war. They want to be like away from all sorts of war. When Trump campaigned in 2016, he said that why are we in NATO? What's the point of NATO? Why are we still fighting Russia? What's the point of NATO at this day and age? Right? And everybody was surprised. Hey, you can't say that. You can't say that. And then Tucker Carlson and everybody came along and, hey, he's a point. He has a point. Why are we in NATO? And why are we paying 90% of NATO? So he came in as a very, very anti-war president. Super anti-war, right? So the administration, the Hillary Clinton and all of these, interventionists, they were very pro-war. They just wanted to fight, get into U.S. wars and so on and so forth. They saw it as an economic project. Okay. Now these Dick Cheney and all of these people, George W. Bush. So it was a Republican and Democrat thing, but there was a new faction in the American right which was very anti-war, which is the kind of faction which was supported by Peter Thiel. Okay. Now that faction was put on by Trump. Then there's something called a neocon establishment, neoconservatives. They are very pro-war. Okay. Now Trump came in as an anti-war guy, and in 2016 to 2020 there was no war. US didn't get into any war, right? There was no Ukraine war. There was a Syrian conflict, but US didn't interfere in it. It didn't become a full-scale escalated war, right? Afghanistan drawdown happened during Trump, right? Down to last 2,000 people. And then that drawdown, that exit was botched by Biden. So he was like a totally anti-war guy. And he has been. He said Iraq was a mistake and so on and so forth. So when he came in 2024, he said, I'm going to solve Russian-Ukraine conflict in like a day or something, right? Of course, that was aggrandizement. That was oversell. But that's what he believed in. So he came in and he said that I'm going to do this, right? And so when he came, he tried everything, right? He tried talking to Putin, he tried talking to Zelensky. He stopped Zelensky's war supplies, he stopped Zelensky's money supply. Putin didn't stop. He met Putin, he tried to ask Zelensky on a very hard term that you've not thanked us and so on and so forth. You remember that heated discussion? So all to stop the war, right? He stopped the Israel and Gaza conflict in whatever way you can. If he didn't let the Iran conflict become a huge war, right? Zero casualties, zero US casualties. So that is where he came from. Now he tried everything to stop the Russia-Ukraine war, but it didn't work out, right? And what he thought would be a good idea was to actually bring India into the equation, right? And get US to stop Russia from waging a war by stopping the Indian money tap for Russia, because India and China started taking the Russian oil, right? Now that particular bit didn't work out as planned, because whoever advised him, Peter Navarro, that Lutnick guy, or he himself thought it was a great idea despite having such a good relationship with the country. That was a big, big blunder. Now the two ways to have to see it going from here on was, number one, you double down on it, right? You screw India and you say that, hey, you stop buying Russian oil. And at the same time, you can't screw China anymore because you've already tariffed China to the T, right? You can't do anything about Europe. It's going to do what it's going to do. So you fight with India to no avail. Now that didn't seem like a very logical thing to do, right? So the next thing was you eat dust, right? You essentially come back. And the way Trump works is like, admit nothing, right? Don't admit defeat. Don't admit defeat ever. Like attack, attack, attack. Attack is the best defense, right? All the time you attack. So whenever if you followed his presidential campaign in 2016 or 2020, right? Michael Bloomberg, somebody like Michael Bloomberg came into the presidential campaign from the Democrat side, right? And he came with a lot of money. Like Michael Bloomberg is way richer than Trump, right? $85 billion, a finance legend. Nobody comes close to Bloomberg, right? So Bloomberg is the end of the finance world, essentially, right? He's the god, the titan of the finance world. The world's finance runs on Bloomberg, right? And Bloomberg was also the mayor of New York. And Trump has been a real estate guy, a New Yorker, so to speak, right? So he had a very good relationship with Bloomberg, right? But when Bloomberg came to the presidential campaign, he was mocking Bloomberg for being short. He was essentially doing bits where he bowed down to match his height and stuff, because Mr. Bloomberg is not not that tall, right? So he's a legend. I love him. I've read his book, Bloomberg by Bloomberg, and he's just next level. But Trump was mocking him, literally mocking him, right, for his height. So he's that kind of a guy. He's like attack, 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 and you know you don't bend, come what may, right? So that's the guy he was. So he was like looking at attacking, and then he was gonna come back, and that's what we read, and that's exactly what's happening. uh, so you need some context, and Art of the Deal, by the way, is not a bad book at all. It's pretty interesting, it's fun, right? Funny book, funny, and it has one of the best openings by in any autobiography. It's like, I don't do it for the money, I do it to do it. Like a painter derives joy in painting, and so on and so forth. So it was phenomenal start, very funny, and quite insightful as well. I mean, it was not a bad book. So when I wrote its praise, the book, the writer of the book, the guy who wrote the book with Trump, Tony Schwartz, he came on my post and he said, I regret writing that book. I don't think anybody should read that book, and so on and so forth. And I'm like, what kind of hypocrisy is this, man? When the book came out, it came out in the 80s, right? And you profited from it till 2016 when Trump announced his presidential bid. So for full 30 years, you essentially made money off the book. Great money, right? It was a bestseller. You didn't say no to that money. You only realized that, oh, writing that book was a mistake. Oh, I did a big blunder. I gave a megalomaniac a platform or whatever when he ran for president, when he essentially became a problem for you in your political circles, right? And that's when you came back to the TV for your second applause. So that, hey, he's a bad guy, and so on and so on, just because it served your politics. So that happened. But the point is, we saw this coming. And what's the time right now? It's 8:26. No, it's the time to look into the future, which is what we do, right? Which is what we do. Moving on. So we've been talking about the GST play. We've talked about it enough. Great job on the great job on the sip, guys. I want to thank somebody. In yesterday's episode, Mr. Mac to Maverick, a YouTube handle, what that handle did was, it basically, with timestamps, gave a list of everything discussed in the episode. Like timestamp, kind of an index for the whole episode. It was amazing. I was just talking to a friend last night, and he said you should do something like that, and I'm like, I don't have any time, man. I spend like 2.5 hours on this thing, 1.5 hours on reading, and then 1 hour on delivery. I can't spend a minute more as far as effort is considered. So somebody from the community will have to take up. And then I saw Mr. Mac to Maverick having done the whole index based time stamping of the last episode. It was extraordinary, very heavy, very nice, and it gave like a new meaning to the episode. So a big thanks to Mr. Mac to Maverick. You really just went out of your way. It's beautiful. Everybody will benefit, right? Moving on. Buying companies sales set ahead, GST 2.0 dawn. We've talked about this. Discounts across products aimed at clearing unsold stock, boosting demand. Similar stuff is happening with car companies. They are really, so they have paid like a lot of cess, right? They have like 6 lakh cars and so on and so forth, the whole inventory. Now they want to get over that cess, right? And just remove the inventory overload. So every car is getting a serious discount. Cars like 1.5 lakh discount, Maruti is giving 60,000 discount, and so on and so forth. Cars have become suddenly very, very cheap. Like imagine a 10 lakh car getting sold at 8.5 lakhs. That's not a small deal. That's huge. That's incredible, right? So that's what's happening with cars. Sales growth had eased. We've talked about how Indian cars had not been growing. The car sales had not been growing. We are at 4 million for a long time, and it's not growing at all. Last 2 quarters were very bad. And now with the whole GST 2.0 thing, they're going to be looking at some sort of problems as far as the whole cess of the previous inventory is considered. We talked about this. So they're just giving discounts all of a sudden. Do you think with these discounts, even before the festive season, so they're like, cover it up, man. When GST 2.0 comes, great. Before that, cover it up. So do you think this will lead to more car sales? Well, it's very likely. If this doesn't lead to more car sales, we should just pack our bags and leave, right? Then there's no hope for the country. But it should lead to some good news, and that's what's happening. India's leading car manufacturers are walking tightrope as they grapple rising input costs, mounting regulatory pressures, and cautious consumer spend. And to woo programs, loyalty programs, festive offers to view hesitant buyers. This push comes at a time when demand has softened, particularly in the first two quarters of the financial year. So we've talked about this a lot. They're really giving, incentive spends and so on and so forth. And so are all companies. Fashion, electronics, retailers rush to clear stock. Vmart faces 30 crore GST credit block. Flipkart sale events scheduled for 8 to 16. Amazon running deals. GST on cars will drop and so on and so forth. 2,500 crore cess already paid, say the dealers, the car dealers. We've talked about this in detail. So that's that. Let's move on. India IT Inc. worries as US may outsource levy with biz. So while we talked about everything as far as the Trump play is considered and how he will be looking at quoting India now in his own ways, idiosyncrasies, but the IT industry is still under the pressure, right? People are saying, what happens if US gives a levy on outsourcing, right? Now it's very complicated. It's much harder to actually tariff services, IT services, than tariffing products. Tariffing products is much simpler. Tariffing services is extremely hard, right? But it is an overhang. So his advisors, Peter Navarro and the Lutnick guy, they are hell bent on actually going ahead with the whole US India discussion right now. The earlier discussion where US tries to arm twist India, it's not going to work out, and I don't think it's very unlikely that these people do something that they've not been doing already, like the whole immigration tightroping, and that's what they've been doing, right? The visas thing and so on and so forth. Now that they will do, but a direct tariff on Indian outsourcing seems a bit unlikely, right? But IT companies are worried. Tech service clients would be hit as India popular location, alarm for GCCs too. So India is essentially a $280 billion IT services giant. IT services, $280 billion, out of which $224 billion goes to US, right? So they're talking to Japan, Australia, Scandinavia, and West Asia, and so on and so forth, to take it up a little. But $224 billion, basically out of $280 billion, $224 billion, just US, right? So obviously they are worried. But they are obviously worried not just because of this issue, but a lot of issues other than that, right? Indian outsourcing is going through its own worries, which we've discussed in depth. Moving on. There's a report. It's a very slow day for news apparently. So there's some reports. Spectrum spent. Starlink starts to lay groundwork in advanced talk with multiple companies to build terrestrial ecosystem in India. Starlink, the world's largest satellite broadband company, has started groundwork for building terrestrial infrastructure in India. Now this is no surprise. Satcom is one of the three industries that are going to go 10x in a very, very short time. Very short time. Which were the other two industries? Do you remember? We've talked about this. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency should remember. What were the two industries that were, along with Satcom, going to go 10x in, let's say, one is going to go 10x in the next 2 years, and one is going to go 10x in its own time because there's a lot of construction issues going on. What are those two industries? Can you remember, please? Not all industries grow 10x, by the way. That's not a growth rate that you expect, right? In a couple of years, in 5 years, 10x, that's just extraordinary. Mr. Raju Kumar says defense. No, no, Mr. Kumar. It's not defense. What was the other industry which was gonna go 10x, right? We talked about this. There are people, SMEs supplying to that industry whose stocks are going up. It's a very complicated play. We've been very skeptical of the whole thing. 10x. Nuclear is one, Mr. Tiwari, you're right. There was the other one. Nuclear still can't go 10x in 2 years, right? Because nuclear takes time to make. So nuclear is looking at like a 10-year horizon where it goes 10x, right? With everything, the groundworks being laid and so on and so forth. There's regulations and everything. But there's something that is gonna go 10x in just the next 2 years, along with Satcom. Which is that industry? We've talked about this a lot. Come on. No? Nobody? Well, that's surprising. Mr. Sandeep Singh said semiconductor. No, no, it's not semiconductor. Oh yeah, semiconductor is an industry which will grow 10x, but not really because that 1.5 lakh crore, $18 billion budget is already marked to that, right? They'll take time. Which is that industry? You forgot? Oh, that's very surprising. It's the GLP drug. Don't you remember? The GLP drug, the weight loss drug, the Eli Lilly, the Novo Nordisk, that play. 1 lakh people taking that drug right now. 10 lakh people gonna take in the next 2 years. In fact, they even gave an upward revision for that industry. 12 lakh. You cannot, it wouldn't be, smart to forget something like that because that particular thing has a lot of cascading effects, right? Now, that particular industry, the GLP guys, right? It comes with an injection kind of a thing, something like a syringe and a block. Now, people who are making that glass, those plastics, their stock has gone up. Their stock. So that particular bit, you've got to analyze that in a lot of ways, right? We discussed it, second order effects, the cascading effects of the GLP drugs. Let's say if somebody starts, somebody used to be obese and then they thin out, right? What kind of ancillary industries is it gonna spawn, right? A lot of skin industry, dermatologists, workout play. The food industry dies because people don't eat out, right? These people used to be big eaters, now they don't eat at all, right? So their appetite goes down and so on and so forth. So that particular play cannot be forgotten. But it is with Satcom, the industry which is going 10x in a very, very short period of time, like 2 years. I can't think of any other industry apart from these play. So Big Bang entry plan, Starlink is reportedly talking to SIFI, STT, Equinix, Control S. Initial capex pegged at 500 crore, annual capex at 350 crore, 17 ground stations finalized. Number of LEO satellites to grow 7,000 to 22,000 by 2030. Global subscriber base at 4.6 million, expected to reach 5.67 million. LEO is low Earth orbit, right? There's GEO and there's LEO. Geostationary, and then there's low Earth orbit. Low Earth orbit is gonna grow and so on and so forth. So we've talked about this a lot. There's a company called VinFast. This is a Vietnamese company, EV maker. They're like talking badi baatein. They're saying that, hey, we're not gonna sell just cars in India, right? We're gonna be building an ecosystem from cars to charging stations, to smart cities to schools to resorts to whatever. So we just don't believe in making cars. We'll give a proper ecosystem to people, right? So when you buy a car, you'll be able to visit some sort of resorts, enroll in a school. I don't know what kind of picture they're painting. It's just extraordinary, right? So they're pretty big, these Vietnamese guys. They're saying the company is looking to build a complete ecosystem in India, spanning EVs, buses, charging infra, and even schools, hospitals, and smart cities. And I'm like, whoa, badi baatein. That's like a lot of big talk, right? Ozempic has suddenly emerged with weight loss surge, says Mr. Sumanna from Humble Bean Coffee. So everybody should remember Humble Bean Coffee. You remember Humble Bean Coffee from Karnataka, which we started drinking, which I drink. So it's great coffee. And he says, Mr. Sumana, our very own, Ozempic has suddenly emerged with weight loss surge. What do you mean by weight loss surge, sir? Weight loss drug? Or I don't understand. But anyway, so Winfast is actually talking, and the deals that they're giving for the cars is just extraordinary, right? 10-year warranty, 3-year free service, and so on and so forth, right? So why are they doing it? Because Winfast is not really having a manufacturing unit in India. So they're basically a very small assembly plant. So they've not really invested in the country, right? So they're just essentially selling and not really making in India. So to compensate on that, they're talking about these things that, hey, once the cars sell, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. A lot of big talk. Moving on. Corporate climbers are scaling new heights, literally. They're talking about some sort of uh, mountaineering, mountain climbing. So hiking is a big activity, of course, in India. Now from hiking, people are advancing to some sort of mountain climbing, right? Professionals, corporate groups, and young adventurers increasingly opting for offbeat peaks, redefining mountaineering scene. So people are talking about this, and it's a burgeoning industry, it's a growing industry. And they're saying that it offers a new way for these people to connect and engage themselves in an adventurous activity, so to speak. So some numbers, uh, they're looking at Bucket List mindset. Bucket List was a movie, by the way. It was Jack Nicholson, Mr. Jack Nicholson, and Mr. Morgan Freeman. A great movie which you should watch. Bucket List was an extraordinary movie, very good movie. Uh, Bucket List uh, sort of inspired an Indian movie called Dasvadanya, but not really. Dasvadanya was a very different, very unique movie on its own. It had a very different story, and Dasvadanya was an incredibly beautiful movie. It's one of the most beautiful indie films that India has ever made. So if you're looking at a Sunday, and if you want to watch a beautiful movie, Dasvadanya by Vinay Pathak sir, Rajat Kapoor, Vinay Pathak, Saurabh Shukla, the whole indie art scene, art movie scene of India. They made Dasvadanya, great movie. Anyway, so Bucket List, they're talking about different, you know, as Kang Yatse 2 in Ladakh, Nan Kun in Jammu, Friendship Peak in Himachal Pradesh, Nepal's Mera, and so on and so forth. So this market is growing. Everest base camp costs like 1.5 lakhs, 1.2 lakhs. These are like 70, 60, 70,000 rupees. And, that makes them pocket friendly and so on and so forth. 6,000-meter climb offers a real sense of achievement without the massive cost of Everest. So this particular market is growing. I was just looking at the number that we could get. So yeah, this particular bit is going. I myself not much into mountaineering, but I had a bike trip from Delhi, from Dwarka, which is where I live, from Dwarka to Chandratal, which is near Leh, Ladakh, and so on. So Chandratal, Lahore Spiti, and back. So it was a 1700-kilometer bike trip, covered in 8 days. So it was a big deal. But that kind of a thing is going on. So I did it alone, but it was just one bike. But that particular, when I was on that trip, we were looking at uh, a lot of crews, like a 20 bike caravan, or all of these people. They were running organized trips on that scheme, right? Very, very uh, it was a huge deal where people were going. Mr. Tiwari says 60K a pocket friendly, I guess deep pockets. Well, you're right, Mr. Tiwari, but you got to look at the mountaineering lens, right? So if you look at that particular bit, uh, little things cost a lot, so they have to wear a jacket, right? These people, if especially in they're going in slightly cold environments, and that particular jacket, it's like a body warmer kind of a thing. It has metal plates on its back which can sort of warm you up. It stores electricity and then it basically warms you up. That just that jacket is 15K or 20K. So very expensive, right? So that kind of this is an interesting expensive interest. So deep pockets, mountaineering is not for the poor. So yeah, deep pockets indeed. But this market is by the way burgeoning in India. Moving on, a lot of political chit chat which we best not discuss. It's always a good idea to avoid political chit chat. We've already talked about SIS buying APS, Securitas, the biggest private security market deal, the largest company buying the sixth largest. We've already talked about 650 crores. You remember that. Home interiors market to double to $24 billion by 2030. So in 5 years, home interiors market is gonna double. Right now, it is at 12.3 billion, and it's gonna be at 24.5 billion dollars by home interiors. So home interiors market, they're saying that it has a lot of cascading effects. If you invest a lot in home interiors, you have a better resale value. Your house gets like a 70% increment. A well-designed interior can increase a property's resale value by up to 70% and attract rental premiums of about 45%. So, this is a report by Magic Bricks. Uh, Home interiors market growing in India. Home interiors market is also very good for the consumption economy, by the way. Very, very nice. Because that leads to a lot of spending. Semiconductor, says Miss Akshay. I guess it's related to the previous story. No, Miss Akshay, we discussed it. You're gonna get along. LinkedIn has some sort of latency, unfortunately. Moving on, this road shows a hit. They've done a deep dive on some sort of micro influencer play on infrastructure. So there's some brand of YouTubers, some brand of documentarians, if you can call them, who are literally tracking the infrastructural progress with drones, and so they make movies. They make progress reports, video progress reports on infrastructure projects, like some sort of tunnels and highways and so on and so forth, and they're getting a lot of viewership. So they say a group of infra influencers are reeling in viewers with aerial footage capturing India's mega projects, from highways, rail corridors to sea bridges. They've also become a publicity hand for construction firms and government agencies. So this is obviously an interesting phenomenon, because ideally this should be the media's job, right? The media is supposed to do something like this. They have a proper budget laid down for this. The TV guys, these people are journalists, so they are supposed to make such reports and literally put them up online. So it'll be an intellectual property. So if you remember, these media groups used to make documentaries, right? That used to be the mainstay. So if you looked at any media programming, you would have looked at documentaries, right? Like a 15-minute, 20-minute, 30-minute documentary of a particular scene, right? Now that documentary had a lot of repeat value. It had a repeat watch value. It was not just a current affair thing. It was something that was like a deep dive on an issue done in a documentary way, right? So you remember Madam Nagma Seher from NDTV doing a lot of that, and so on and so forth. Many good people. But what they started doing was they started going away from documentaries, right? Now, if you watch TV, I'm sure you don't, but if you do, if you watch a full day of news, you will not see any proper documentary kind of a news report on anything, right? Because of lowered attention spans, what these people thought was, they've got to be current, we've got to be fast, we've got to be heavy, right? And all of that music and stuff, right? So instead of going for these well-made, well-invested documentaries, they started going current. Now that the gap still exists, right? That particular content is great, that beautiful. I wouldn't call it content. That report, that art piece, I'd call it an art piece actually. Good documentaries are very, very art. They have a high art value, right? News documentaries. They still have a market. Now these people with their drones and with their phone cameras have sort of taken up that place. So, you know what happens is when an industry falls, when an industry starts falling, as TV is falling, the first thing what happens is talent starts going away from that particular industry, right? And when the talent starts going away from that industry, the quality of that industry, of the produce of that industry starts going. So the decline sort of accelerates. The downward spiral applies to everything, right? A rising industry will attract more talent because they'll see more prospects, right? And the quality of that work will rise. And a falling industry, you'll see it falling even quicker because the good people who used to do that work, they won't be motivated to do it any longer, right? So you'll see a lot of bad work happening on radio. You'll see a lot of bad work happening on TV because the good people just don't want to be a part of that sunset industry anymore, right? Unfortunately. But I believe that these people have a fighting chance. They should have a proper budget for these kind of documentaries, right? Like the small, they should send their journalists, make reports old school, show it to on TV on a, let's say, non-prime time play, right? And then put it online because these documentaries have a very solid repeat value. Anyway, so these people are saying that they're getting millions of views on this, a lot of followers. They're saying India's spend on infrastructure has increased from 2 lakh crore to 11.2 lakh crore in just 10 years. In FY15 it was 2 lakh crore. In FY26 it's 11.2 lakh crore. So it's grown 5x in 10 years. That's a lot of money and people are interested in seeing where it's going, right? And these people with their drone footages and all, they do it. So they don't make money because let's say if you have to cover a particular, road, highway. Now that's going to cost a lot, right? Because you've got to take your car and the equipment. It's going to cost a lot of fuel. So they're still doing it as a hobby. But then, eventually you find a way. Some real estate guys tell you that, hey, cover my society, cover my housing project and whatever. So that becomes a money-making project. It's going on. I sincerely believe that the media companies should look at this market very, very seriously. The whole tiny micro documentaries, right? Yeah, we've talked about this. Bharat Mala Pariyojana, big infrastructure projects, 34,800 kilometers, reduced logistics costs. 26,000 has been awarded, 18,000 constructed. High-speed rail, bullet train, 1 lakh crore project. Delhi Mumbai Expressway, 1.3 thousand kilometers of road. Navi Mumbai Airport, $2 billion, that's some 18,000 crores. So a lot of money on infrastructure projects, and we'd love to see documentaries around it. Wouldn't you like that? I love it. Like, we did this, we did that. It would be amazing, man. Hello, Nishant. A comment from Mr. Ashutosh Bhandekar. Hello, Nishant. What are your sources of information? So my sources of information, of course, the internet. I follow some people, Scott Adams, Elon Musk, and everybody. Then I read, online papers, like online media, sort of N-Tracker, CapTable, and all, Arc, and all of these people. Mostly N-Tracker. Then there's Mint on print. I read Mint and Economic Times. So those are my sources. Moving on. Just as we talked about this particular play, the road thing, there's another one which is really growing. It's called a micro history play. So these influencers, what they're doing is they're going, instead of the grand history narrative, they're basically picking up a very small shop or a very small road or could you list it? It is very difficult to comprehend. What is difficult to comprehend, Mr. Bhandekar? My sources of information? It's very simple. Economic Times, Mint, you got N-Tracker, you've got new age people, who are doing a lot of finance reporting like CapTable and, Arc and everybody essentially. Some Twitter handles like Scott Adams sir is my hero. This thing, Thinker's Frequency, is because of him, right? Coffee with Scott Adams. Then there's a lot of handles as far as US is considered. I follow a lot of US politics and US, finance and business ecosystem. Then there's varied sources of information. Then there's Mint. So the print I follow two people, Mint and Economic Times. So Mint is pretty good. Then there's Economic Times and so on. So I was talking about the micro history play. Micro history play, what they do is essentially they talk about a very small uh, place, and yeah, micro influencers covering old shops are great, right? So that is huge, right? And this is also a very big way of, this is something that old school media companies used to do, by the way. So they used to have proper reports about a history of a place, a tiny place. Now the history, by the way, is a very gray thing, right? There's a very good quote which says, "If the news is fake, what do you think about history?" Right? Which is so true. Which is so true. And there's a Malcolm Gladwell podcast which is called Revisionist History. So where they actually relook at history and deep dive on a particular history of, let's say, sports or some art piece or some musical movement and so on and so forth. And they talk about how it changed the whole history. So it's, the podcast was called Revisionist History. So this is what's happening as far as the micro history play is considered. A very good history channel, by the way. Now again, these things used to be done by History Channel and Discovery guys and so on and so forth, right? They're still doing it, but not that much. So a very good channel for history as far as Indian history or Indian, let's say, empires history. The good empires of India is an Odd Compass channel called Odd Compass. And of course, the best Indian historian to have come out of India, in the recent time, the modern age, is somebody called Mr. Bhardwaj. Bhardwaj speaks true Indology. Extraordinary work, right? Extraordinary work. I have heard about Scott Adams. Unfortunately, he's terminally ill, says Mr. Tiwari. Oh yeah, that's exactly why I started Thinker's Frequency. So Scott Adams sir has been doing something called Coffee with Scott Adams, where he starts at 7 a.m. His time, and begins the show talking about politics, mental models, and so on and so forth. Very, very great person. He has books: Loser Think, How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big. Great, great books, extraordinary books. God's Debris. How to Fail at Almost Anything and Still Win Big is probably the best non-fiction self-help book, if you can call it self-help. It's memoir and self-help. It's the best book in that genre. Best book. Atomic Habits doesn't come close, right? How to Fail at Almost Anything led to Atomic Habits. So a lot of Atomic Habits wisdom is borrowed from that book, right? So great book. So what he used to do Coffee with Scott Adams. He still does. And then in one of the episodes, he said that I've gotten cancer. I've gotten testicular cancer, prostate cancer. I've got prostate cancer, which is spread to my bones. And I think my life expectancy is about this summer. And I might just be checking out of this domain anytime soon. This domain meaning life, right? Writer. The Dilbert comic. He also wrote Dilbert comics. That's his career. The comic, right? Extraordinary. I used to read Economic Times and be most excited about Dilbert. Then they cancelled him. The cancel culture took to him, right? And then he came out with this news that he's gotten this particular thing and he might just die. And I was very sad, right? I literally was very sad. And he was like, in the stream, he said, "Don't cry. You cannot be more sad about my cancer than me," right? So something like that. And that's where I thought that there should be something to sort of carry on his legacy, right? His legacy needs to be continued. Scott Adams sir's legacy, the thing he did with Coffee with Scott Adams, needs to be continued. And that's why I started Thinker's Frequency, right? Because I wanted to carry it forward and, pay a tribute to him and so on and so forth. That's where I started doing it like every day at 8. Because Scott Adams sir doesn't take a break, right? Even now. So very interestingly, if we're talking about him, This is very inspiring. So he got this cancer. He said, maybe I might just check out. So uh, medical assisted euthanasia is legal in California. So you can drink a juice and you can die, right? If you're terminally in, you need to certify it by a couple of doctors, and then you can drink a juice and you will die, right? So he had set up a date for his death, right? Because the pain was becoming unbearable. For 5 months, he was not being able to walk and so on and so forth. It was extraordinarily disconcerting. So he had chosen a day for him going away, right? But then he found out a drug, testosterone blocker, essentially, which stopped his cancer. So cancer needs testosterone to eat, right? So with this expensive hormone therapy, his pain went away, his PSA levels came down, right? So he said that I don't know how much time I have, but my pain is down, my PSA levels are up, and today, so in one of the streams, he said, today was the day I was supposed to die, right? I had chosen a day. There was some wedding event of my stepdaughter or whatever. After that, I had chosen that this particular day is when I'm gonna drink that juice and it'll be over. But it didn't. I got saved. Now I don't know how much time I have. Maybe it's months, maybe it's years, or maybe they find out a cure, right? While I'm at it. But just imagine, this was the day I was supposed to die, and that's what he said. So he's still doing Coffee with Scott Adams, 7:30 India time, right? Great guy, extraordinary guy, and that's why we have Thinkers Frequency. That's why in every post I write about Thinkers Frequency, I credit Scott Adams, sir, right? If you've noticed, because and this simultaneous sip is his idea, right? The copper mugger tanker chalice. What is this? Copper, mugger, glass, a tank, a chalice, a stein, a canteen jug, a flask, or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. He says, I like coffee. And then he sips, right? So simultaneous sip is totally his. And I've never claimed otherwise. I'm very ethical that way. Anyway, so micro cuts in regulations. They're talking about micro cuts in regulations. We've talked a lot about regulations and compliances and how they've been hurting Indian businesses. We've talked about that many times across the board. Now that particular play, they're looking at simplifying it, of course, and small companies are highlighting that is a bit of a problem, right? So a tangled web, 512 number of annual regulations an MSME unit in one state faces on average, 512, right? 1649 number of recurring regulations that an MSME unit has to comply with on an average in a year. 1355. So the government has decriminalized 355, offenses, let's say, and they are saying that we're going to bring it up to 1355, and not just that, we're going to have, retrospective application of those 1365, decriminalizations. What that means is, let's say a particular play is decriminalized, so existing cases of that play, uh, you know, existing cases are going to get quashed. So that's awesome, right? That's awesome. So the government is trying, and this is what leads to ease of doing business. So you know why FDI is a problem for India? India has never been able to attract a lot of FDI, right? Basically nothing of its GDP percentage wise. Why? Because it's very difficult to do business in India. And why is it difficult? It's because of these compliance burdens, right? Regulations and so on and so forth. It's very difficult, especially if you're manufacturing something, right? It's just extraordinarily hard. All the compliance, you get bogged down by the whole compliance play, right? So they say that this decriminalization, Jan Vishwas, the government play is called Jan Vishwas. Decriminalizing laws will bring relief to stakeholders already employed in legal battles. We've already talked about the earlier Jan Vishwas Amendment of Provisions Acts 2023. 183 provisions and 42 acts were decriminalized. So they're trying their best, essentially the regulation playing guys, to get out of the way. Because the Babu culture, just imagine how hard it would be for you to deal with Babus who have 7 ways till Sunday to screw you. Like the article begins, Uh, a failure to whitewash washrooms once every 4 months, or varnish woodwork in cafeterias, or display maternity benefits on a billboard can land an entrepreneur in jail. Right? These are just few of the 512 regulations that MSMEs in a single factory in a state have to comply with. So, and then there's a problem where there's a state regulation, then there's center regulation. The two babus hurt you. So two babus find a way to screw you, right? I just hope we can find a way to get out of this. The US situation prompted a lot of action in this direction. So let's see. Mr. Satish says, Nishant, it's touching and inspiring that you acknowledge Scott Adams. Yeah, he's one of my heroes, right? And I wish him luck. I pray that he gets well soon. He finds a way to beat cancer. He's just an incredibly nice guy. You should read How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big. I recommend that book to everybody. I've gifted that book to so many people, you know, and he's a very nice person. Moving on, decoding Trump's crypto empire. US president's crypto strategy has a major impact. So everybody knows about Trump's family's involvement in WLF, the World Liberty Fund. It's a crypto play, and that crypto play has led to some sort of a conflict of interest kind of a situation. And that conflict of interest kind of a situation is basically indefensible, right? But the only defense of Trump, as far as that play, is that he's been very transparent about it. So nothing has been underneath. He's been touting crypto even before the election. And it's basically an election promise that is being fulfilled as far as the whole crypto play is considered. Right? That's the only defense. But other than that, a lot of companies, a lot of countries, they're finding out ways to please him by essentially using crypto, his WLF token or whatever. And a lot of money is flowing in crypto in general, and then also his affiliate company, his family's company. And that's basically a bit of a problem, right? But he says that I'm open about it. I'm telling everybody to get into crypto. So if something is, the question is a very good question to us, all of us. It's a thought question. If it's transparent, does it make it okay if you're transparent about something, right? An opposite side of the story is, let's say, when Nancy Pelosi, she was a senator, her husband traded stocks, right? And his stock record, Nancy Pelosi tracker, says that they've beaten S&Ps by a lot, man. They are better than the best traders of the world. Why? Because she used to have all this sensitive information about stocks, and he used to trade on those informations. How is that legal? Right? Now that is clear conflict of interest. You're using your position and your information to actually unfairly game the market. But since Trump has been talking about it openly and he's been touting the crypto play, does it make it right? Of course it doesn't, right? There is some angle to it. Like if somebody could essentially bribe you by saying that, hey sir, I invested in your company, and he says, oh, you did, that's cool, and then it leads to a conversation, and I get something that the other guy doesn't because he didn't invest in your company. So that's wrong, but that's what it is right now. WLF, World Liberty Fund. So a lot of actions, by the way. 2 guys freed. Binance guy was freed. He was touting bad securities, and crypto in general has led to a lot of illegal activities. So that takes on. Moving on, we've talked about clearing discounts. 3 lakh rupees. Mahindra could lose 3 lakh rupees as cess on each unit of Scorpio if the existing stock isn't sold by September. So a lot of cess issues. We've talked about them enough. Moving on. A lot of new airports coming. In Mumbai and Delhi, secondary airports are taking flights soon, about time. So that's very good. Jewar Airport, Navi Mumbai Airport developed by Adani. We've talked about that. Jewar Airport, and so on and so forth. A friend of mine working at Bain actually worked on a project where the consultants basically worked with GMR on essentially uh, deciding what flight routes to give to Jewar Airport, right? Now this is a project, right? So there's IGI Airport run by these guys, GMR guys. Now Jewar Airport goes. So there's gonna be some uh, flights that are gonna be diverted to that play. What flights should you give to them so it becomes good for them and it doesn't lose you business? So that was a good project that he did. He told me about it. It was very interesting. Uh, Moving on. We've talked about this enough. Blue blockbuster blueprint. The movie Jaws created a hit playbook that filmmakers have followed closely for 50 years. So, they're talking about basically survival movies. Jaw was a Steven Spielberg movie. A very, very big hit, one of the biggest hits by Steven Spielberg. Now, Steven Spielberg has had many hits. So, his movies have made more money than Belgium. There's a joke. So if you look at his filmography, Steven Spielberg made Jaws. Then he also made my favorite, Catch Me If You Can. Then he also made what did he make? Did he make the Schindler's List? One second. Movies. Okay. So yeah, Jaws, E.T., upon which the Koi Mil Gaya was made. Schindler's List, yes. Saving Private Ryan. Catch Me If You Can was my favorite. Lincoln was another, and so on and so forth. Some bad movies as well. But yeah, so survival movies have an arc, right? If you watch something like I Am Legend is a very good survival movie. A great survival movie for you to watch if you're interested in these movies is Train to Busan. Now it's a Korean movie with Ma Dong, a very good actor. Korean movie, great movie, extraordinary movie, very, very entertaining, and also has an art value. So it's not just a commercial flick, even though it is commercial, it's like out and out commercial, but it also has a very serious art value as far as that play is considered. Great movie. So they're talking about all the movies that got inspired by Jaws, which are Creature, Anaconda, Piranha, and so on and so forth. Orca, Nope, The Thing, yeah. Seen it, loved that movie, worth watching, says Mr. Kumar. Yeah, I'm so glad you have actually seen it. Train to Busan, a great movie. I love that guy actually. Ma Dong, really nice. I watched all his movies after that. No, after I watched the Roundup series first, and then I watched Train to Busan. Anyway, so that's about it, folks. Slow day for news. Not much happening in the world, apparently. But I hope you had fun. It was nice talking. I hope it added value to you in different ways. Right? It was obviously fun talking. I need to thank Mr. Kumar, Mr. Tiwari, Mr. Bhandekar, Mr. Satish, Mr. Sumanna, and Miss Akshaya, and everybody else who joined. It was lovely talking. I hope it added value. This brings us to the end of the 105th episode of Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. It's 9:12. We're going to punch in anytime. I wish you a beautiful day personally and professionally. I'll see you tomorrow. Mr. I'll see you tomorrow, same place, same time, hopefully. Have a beautiful day. Mr. Bhandekar says, I like the way you say Bhandekar. I hope I'm right with the pronunciation. I would hate to ruin anybody's name. And I ruin a lot of people's name. So this Winfast guy, you know what his name is? His name is, I'll tell you his name. His name is pretty funny, by the way. It's Pham Sang Chao. Right? Vietnamese name. Funny for me, not funny for them. They'll call me racist, but I'm not. Anyway, have a beautiful day, folks. See you tomorrow, same place, same time, hopefully. Bye-bye. Oh, and big thanks to Mr. Mac to Maverick yet again for doing the indexing of the episode.